Hello all, very good evening. Thanks for joining the session. This is the demo one on Docker and Kubernetes course. Let me share my screen and explain you the plan, course content, and let us start how we can execute this course. I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, hope you are able to see my screen. Okay, so let me write the today's date. So course is the Docker and Kubernetes. Course is Docker and Kubernetes. So duration is 45 days. Duration is 45 days. Maximum 45 days. It will be around 30 to 45 days. Maximum 45 days. Minimum 30 days. If we can spend little time in the weekends, if we can, then it will be finished in 30 to 35. I can say 35 to 45 days. Plus or minus 10 days it will be. And then the course fee. Course fee, probably you might have already know, this is 3000 INR. And with this course fee, in this duration, what you will get? So soft copy of the material you will get, and recordings you will get with the validity of 60 days. So again, about the 60 days recordings validity, I will check and then come back to you with our backend team. But minimum 60 days definitely will be there. 60 days to 90 days, I believe. I'm not sure, but I'll come back with this one. Okay, so this is the particulars about the course. And let us go into the course format and then execution, what we will do in this course. We already have. So the agenda of the course is, the agenda of this course is, we already have the Jenkins build pipeline. Jenkins as a CICD tool. We already have this infrastructure. So what I would like to showcase you is here, if you can see. So we already have this Jenkins infrastructure. We already have this SonarQube infrastructure. We already have this Artifactory JFrog infrastructure. Now in this course, what we gonna do is, we gonna write the Docker files, Docker compose files, and first we will Dockerize the applications. A total of 6 applications we will Dockerize, and then that Dockerized applications will be tested through this CICD application, CICD pipeline. That means when the developer will write the code and then check in the code, this Jenkins CICD pipeline will build the code and then verifies the code for the quality, and then push the artifact to the Artifactory, and then the Docker machine, it will invoke the Docker machine or communicate with the Docker machine, and then inform the Docker machine about this artifact, and then Docker machine will start creating the Docker container, or first creating the Docker image and then creates the Docker container. Can you please? Yeah, and creates the Docker container using this Artifactory, and then the developer, when pushing the code, the developer will have, the developer source code will have the Docker file with that source code like this. So just in a moment of time, let me open this one, exercises. This is like this. The developer will write the Docker file and then push the source code. So here developer meaning no other person will write this Docker file, also we have to write. So what I mean to say is, first in this pipeline, when the developer will push the code, right, that code will be built as an artifact like war file or jar file. That artifact we will take on the Docker machine, and in the Docker machine we will write the we already will write the Docker file and then push it to the source code. So what we can do is two build jobs. Let us write here. One is the build job. Second one is the deployment job. So as part of the deployment job, what we will do? Let us write the Docker file and push it to the repository. That will be taken by the Jenkins pipeline. Give that Docker file to Docker. Then Docker will go to Artifactory, get the build file, that is var or jar. So Docker file plus var or jar, both it will use and then create the Docker images. And then using that images, it will run the Docker containers. Then those Docker images we will push to the Docker container registry. So here we will set up our custom registry like Harbor. We will set up. Okay, so agenda of this Docker is what you will learn in the Docker. What you will learn in the Docker is how to Dockerize. Here in this mission, the Dockerization is happening, right? What is Dockerization? How to Dockerize the different applications. So we will see the 6 kind of applications. How do we Dockerize those 6 kind of applications? Right? How do we understand those applications, and what are the minimum required things that we should have to know to Dockerize any application, and how to write that file, and how to create the Docker images, what is Docker images, what it does contains, and how we can create the Docker container, and how the Docker container will run from the Docker image, the internals of the Docker containers, Docker containers networking, Docker containers volumes, and finally orchestrating the one or more containers together using a simple single Docker compose file is what we will see in this Docker. Okay, so let me go and then write down the Docker plan. But you got it right. Already we have the Jenkins build jobs. So far pipeline is not created, but build jobs were there. So what we need to do, we need to, now the CI is happening, continuous integration is happening. Now we need to do is we need to establish the continuous deployment. So as part of the continuous deployment, Dockerization is one of the steps. So that Dockerization is what we will do in this Docker and then Kubernetes course. So you will know if you attend this course. So what is the agenda? We already have the Jenkins CICD tool, right? Which was already integrated, with the Sonar Cube and already integrated with the Sonar Cube and JFrog Artifactory. So what we have to do? So what we have to do is we have to Dockerize the different technology applications, right? And then we have to clusterize, we have to deploy these Docker containers, or we have deployed these Docker images in the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, Kubernetes cluster. This is the agenda. So we already have the Jenkins CI/CD tool, which was already integrated with the Sonar Cube and then JFrog Artifactory. Now what we have to do is we have to Dockerize the different technology applications, and we have to deploy the Docker images in the Kubernetes cluster. So to do this, we have to proficient in Docker and Kubernetes. Docker and Kubernetes. So that is what we have started this Docker and Kubernetes sessions for a period of 35 to 45 days, the duration. So what is the execution plan? The agenda is clear, the target is clear. The target is what? The target is we will deploy the applications in this Kubernetes cluster. So how do we set up this Kubernetes cluster? Two ways we will do here the setting up the Kubernetes cluster. One is first manually we will set up the high available cluster. Second, we will already, meaning the clouds already providing the Kubernetes. For example, Azure, you can say Azure Kubernetes service is already there. AWS, you can say, right? AWS Kubernetes service is already there. Google Kubernetes service is already there, right? We can use already available Kubernetes clusters, but before using already available Kubernetes clusters, you have to know the in and outs of the Kubernetes first. And the same cluster, like how the clouds are now providing, such a same cluster you have to create and then maintain on your own in the on-premises environment. That is, yes, can you please mute? So that is what we're gonna start in our Kubernetes sessions. Okay, so in Docker sessions, we will create the Docker images and run them as a Docker containers. First, once the images are done, then the same Docker containers we will run inside the Kubernetes. That means couple of benefits, lot of benefits we'll get with the Kubernetes architecture, Kubernetes cluster. If we run the Docker containers created here or the Docker images created here, if we run the Docker images created here as a Docker containers inside the Kubernetes architecture, if we run them, we will get a lot of benefits. What are those benefits and all? Slowly we will see. Okay, so the agenda is what? Agenda is Dockerizing the applications and then deploying them into the Kubernetes architecture. So setting up the Docker, installing the Docker, knowing about the internals of the Docker, Docker networking, Docker volumes, Docker images, Docker containers, Docker registry, and Docker compose. Finally, go to the Kubernetes. Kubernetes, you will learn a lot of things like what is pod, what is service, what is deployment, what is load balancer, what is how we can inspect the parts and how can see the logs, and how we can maintain the zero downtime things, and then how we can cluster, how we can create instances or the Kubernetes parts, in the case of any pod failures. That is called self-healing and all. So what I mean to say is the agenda. Yes, so what I mean to say is the agenda is what, so the Kubernetes and then Docker, we need to set up on our own hands, and then we need to first proficient on those things. Then we will use the already hosted solution of the Kubernetes. But before going that, we will set up this Kubernetes cluster in the AWS EC2 machines with our on-premises setup, high available Kubernetes cluster we will set up. Okay, so what is the plan for that? So you might now got an idea, right? What you gonna do in this Docker and Kubernetes course, right? You might got an idea now what you gonna do in this Docker and Kubernetes course. So this part, continuous integration part, is already there. Now we're gonna start the continuous deployment. As part of the continuous deployment, the Dockerization, containerization, and then the deploying it into the Kubernetes cluster is core part of this continuous deployment. So this continuous deployment core part you will learn in this 30 to 45 days. However, how we will learn the Docker actually. So what is the plan? So the execution plan or the roadmap. The roadmap for executing this course. The roadmap for executing this course is First, I will start with the Docker. First, I will start with the Docker. Okay, so first I will start with the Docker. So in Docker, what you have to understand first. I know most of you folks don't know about the Docker and how the Docker will work. Probably you don't know, right? So you are coming from the without knowledge on the Docker. I'm assuming if that is the case, then how you have to learn the Docker? First of all, what's the problem? What's the problem if there will be no containerization? What's the problem if there will be no containerization technology or tool, whatever it is, containerization technology or tool? So what is the problem, right? So that problem we will understand first. Without containerization technology, what is the problem? How we will face the real-time problems in this deployment flows usually if there will be no container technology like the Docker. Okay, next, solution. Understanding the solution. Understanding the solution with the Docker containerization tool. Understanding the solution with the Docker containerization tool. Now we understood what is the problem, what is the solution, we understood. So for that, I already have prepared a document. What is Docker, the problem statement, what is the problem statement, and how the Docker resolve the issues and all, I was already documented. Okay, so you can go through these documents and then understand. Of course, I will discuss in the session, but in order to recall the things while you are preparing for the interviews and all, you can even go through these materials as well. Fine. So what's the problem? If there will be no containerization technology, and understanding the solution with the Docker containerization tool. Then by this way, we might understand, like, what is Docker? What is Docker? Then once we understand this, what is Docker, then we will understand. Once we understand this, what is Docker, then we will understand virtual machine. Okay, so what is Docker? Once we understand, then we will install the Docker. We will install the Docker on Windows machine and on Ubuntu machine, Ubuntu operating system machine. So this we will take from the AWS EC2 machine. From AWS EC2, we will take Ubuntu operating system machine. Why I'm taking Ubuntu, I have some meaning. I will let you know why I'm preferring only Ubuntu. So Docker will run on the any Linux operating system platform. Of course, Docker itself is also maintains a lightweight Linux operating system called WSL2. But what I mean to say is it will work on any operating system, any distribution. I mean to say any distribution of the Linux, it will work. But preferably, I will choose Ubuntu. Why? Because I have a reason. I will explain coming up Docker sessions. Okay, once after the Docker has been installed, so how to install the Docker and all, you also, however, you definitely need to do, right? So I already have the notes for that. So how to install the Dockerization, how to install the Docker and all, Docker installation, I have the notes. So step-by-step notes I have captured. So you can also refer it later on time as well. Then once the Docker is installed, right, we will understand the infrastructure level, we will understand. So we already have, there is a two words at this moment, you don't know what is there, but there is a two word called virtualization. Virtualization versus containerization. Very famous interview question. Without this interview question, there will be no interview on the Docker and Kubernetes for sure. 100%, this question will be asked. Virtualization versus containerization. So there were two reasons why we are going for the containerization tools that we will discuss in the our point one. So one solution is giving the Docker, and that solution it is giving with the containerization technique. So how that will be different from the virtualization technique, which was already there since last decades of years. Already virtual machines and all we are using since last so many years. But how especially at least from this 2016 to so far, past 6 years, 7 years, containerization technologies usage becomes more. Why? How they are special than the already existed virtual machines? So many years, it's been so many years we are using the virtual machines. Now, since past 6 years, why the companies are looking towards to this containerization? That means there might be some difference, right? With that difference, we are getting the benefit. What is that difference is what we will see. 100% interview question. 100% interview question. Without this, there will be no interview on Docker. If I am the interviewer, 100% I will ask my all the questions on virtualization and containerization only. I don't even ask you how to create Docker image, how to write the Docker file, how to create Docker container. No, I won't even ask those questions. If I have 10 questions if I have the liberty to ask 10 questions, I will ask 10 questions on only this topic, because this is a very interesting topic. And if you understand this virtualization versus containerization, I can easily understand you will be able to work on the Docker easily. That much of importance have to this topic. Okay, now once this topic discussion is completed, then we will start understanding the already existed. So let us first understand the already existed Docker containers. So we will see the study, understanding. So we will understand about the containers. What is Docker container? What is Docker container is what we will understand. And also we will run the Docker containers. We will run the Docker containers from the existing Docker images. What I mean to say is there is a Docker hub.docker.com. So this is the called as a registry. I will explain all these things later in time. You don't worry. But if you can see here, a lot of already Docker images were published here. Even I was also published a lot of Docker images here, right? So what I mean to say now, how we can use these existing Docker images and how we can create the Docker container. So first we will understand the Docker containers concept with the help of the existing Docker images, right? And once after we understand that Docker container concept with the existing Docker images, then we will go and then understand what is Docker file, and how we can create a Docker file. What is Docker file and how we can write a Docker file, right? So this is the place we will write the Docker file for 6 applications. Number 1, for static website. Number 2, for Node.js application. Number 3, for React.js application. Number 4, for the Spring Boot application. Number 5, for the microservice, one microservice, that is also Spring Boot microservice, for 1 or 2 microservices. And 6, Python application. So Python application. So these 6 applications, how we can write the Docker file. Okay, we will see in this concept, 7th step. So then what we will do, once after we have written the Docker file, then we will understand what is Docker image and how do we create our custom Docker images. If we can see here, we will run the Docker container using the existing Docker images, isn't it? Then the question is what, how do we write the Docker images, our own Docker images? How we can write our own Docker images? right? So this is what is what important for us. So how we can write the Docker images? So we have the different kind of an applications. Then how we can write the Docker images for those different kind of an applications is what we will see in this step 8. Now by this way, if we can quick recap, you understood Docker file plus you understood Docker images plus you understood the concept of Docker containers. So by this time, you understood Docker images, Docker file, and then Docker containers. So this is what the outcome you will get by this way, by this time. Then with this understanding, with this technicality, with this expert, what you will do, we will see the Docker container internals. So understanding the Docker internals. So Docker internals, we will see now. Internals, meaning how the Docker image will work. How Docker image will work. So here there is a concept called bootfs, boot file system, and then rootfs inside the Docker images. Bootfs and rootfs. So this you will understand. And we will also understand the image structure, layered structure of the Docker image. So we will understand the layered structure of the Docker image. So we'll understand layered structure of the Docker image. Then also we will see Docker containers. Docker containers. We will see the internals of the Docker containers, like CLI tool are commands. CLI tool are commands for going inside the container, inside the Docker container, for going inside the Docker container. And also we will see the how Docker container networking will be, meaning how networking will set up inside the Docker container. And we will see a problem with the Docker containers data problem. So we will see the Docker containers data problem, and that data problem we will see the solution with the volumes. Solution with the volumes. This is little very in-depth concepts, so very high level and then very in-depth concepts. If you know these in-depth concepts, you can crack any kind of an interview question, no matter how many years of experience you are attending. Maybe 5 years, 6 years, right? 3 years, 2 years, no matter how many years of experience you are attending, but you will be able to answer any question. Then the last topic that we will discuss in our Docker is Docker Compose. Docker Compose. Let's say we have the lot of Docker containers, right? Maybe we will have the MySQL database as one container, and we might have our application, maybe Node.js application, or maybe our Java application, right? So we have this application as another container, So this has MySQL database as one container, and Node.js or Java application as another container. Now we will see how these containers will communicate, with each other, and how do we orchestrate them, meaning how we can manage them. So how these containers will communicate each other, and how the network will be shared, and also we can see how we can map the container data to our Docker machines. So this much we will cover in this Docker Compose. So this is the plan for the Docker course. Okay, so this is the plan for the Docker course. Any prerequisite required? No prerequisite. Nothing. Prerequisite required? nothing. So this is a altogether different one. So no prerequisite is required because we don't write any coding here. Altogether, we will write the scripts like this. Docker compose files we will write like this. So this is how we will write the files. Let me share. Let me open the file. So this is how we will write the small Docker files. This is for one small Docker file for the application. And if you can see the website, static website, so small Docker file we will write. See, just 2 lines of Docker file. And if you can see the Node.js application, so Node.js application also we will run. Meaning different technologies, different Docker files we will write. See, for this we will write this Docker file. So easy. Don't worry about it. Lot of things for it. And no, actually, in fact, the code is duplicated. It seems to be here, isn't it? Now see, just 5-6 lines of code we will write and then create the Docker images, Docker containers. No prerequisite is required. Nothing. These commands and all are purely based on the Docker container technology and Docker engine only. So we will understand each and every command separately, and then we get to know how to write and where to utilize these commands inside our container management technology. That is what we will do. Okay. CICD is not required. I'm saying nothing is required. Nothing is required. Why I'm saying is you guys will be here, right? What I'm telling is this is done by some other guys. This part is already done by some other guys. Now in the industry in real time, you are the folks who need to work here, right? So this is already there and you need to work here. So for the DevOps engineers, if you are the developer, then you have to write the Docker images. Right. So for if you are a developer, then you need to write the Docker files and then Kubernetes manifest files and all. If you are a DevOps engineer, then you have to write end to end like Docker. No matter who is you, whether you are the Docker. Can you please mute? Can you please mute? If you have any question, just raise your hand, please. I will unmute. Okay. Right. So what I'm saying is, no matter whether you are a developer, no matter whether you are a DevOps engineer, no matter whether you are a tester, no matter whether you are a fresher, you don't know anything. So you can learn the container management technology here, how to write how to containerize the applications here. What is containerization technologies are? That is what we will discuss in our Docker sessions. However, let me start the problem that the Docker can solve is. So before going into that, as we now discuss the roadmap about the Docker, then we can also go and then start the roadmap about the Kubernetes. I don't know whether at this moment it will be a little bigger picture for you, but if I can be able to write the Kubernetes content what we're going to discuss, that is also good. But before going that, I would like to hear you from, meaning the questions, if you have any, I would like to hear you. So any questions that you have for me? Hey Uday, you raised your hand. Please ask your question, please.
Sir, small question, sir. ఇప్పుడు నేను అజ్యూర్ డెవాప్స్ మీద పనిచేస్తున్నా. డాకర్ అండ్ క్యూబర్నెటిస్ అంటే నాకు ఈ జెన్కిన్స్ ఈ పార్ట్ నాకు తెలియదు సార్. అంటే ఓన్లీ అజూర్ పైప్ లైన్స్ ఐడియా ఉంటుంది. సో ఇది నాకు హెల్ప్ అవుతుంది సార్. ఓన్లీ అజూర్ డెవాప్స్ మాత్రమే నాకు తెలుసు.
Correct. నేనేమంటున్నానంటే what I'm saying is, no matter whether you know this pipeline or not, doesn't matter. So if you learn the Docker and then Kubernetes, if you know how to Dockerize this, how you will Dockerize the applications either through the pipeline or without the pipeline, you can use it like anything. But if you're already working on the pipeline, like as you said, Azure pipeline, yes, it definitely will be helpful for you because Azure pipeline will give you the artifact. Then the next job will be obviously how we can containerize that artifact is the next job, right? So they definitely will ask you, hey, can you also work on the containerizing the artifact that is already there in the Nexus repository? then you have to start work on this Dockerizing also or containerizing also. So it will be helpful. If you all guys are already working on the different types of pipelines, knowing about the containerization tools and then the clusterizing them is definitely the mandatory skill for you. Am I addressed, Uday? Am I addressed your question?
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions for me? Okay. We are using the AWS infrastructure, correct? So no need to install any Ubuntu operating systems in your laptop, nothing. You need to install only the clients like MobaXterm. So this is the client MobaXterm, using which you can connect to any of the machines of your AWS machines. How to do and all also I will explain. You don't need to do anything. Just come with an empty mind and go with the proficient knowledge on the Docker and Kubernetes. No prerequisite is required. Yeah, so two people raise. Yeah, Amit, ask your question.
Hi, Narsi.
Hi.
Amit this way. I just want to know about the Kubernetes certification. After the course, can we go for any help regarding with that? Will you provide that?
Help in the sense what, you know, the Kubernetes course content that I was designed is purely the certification level. So with the core concepts and with the concepts what we will be do in our entire course, with that course content, if you also practice the certification terms, then definitely you can be certified on the Kubernetes. But you know, Kubernetes certification is not kind of a object, meaning this what is that, you know, ABCD selection. No, you have to do the coding. You have to write the coding, in the sense you have to write the Docker, you have to write the exam basically, meaning, you know, theoretical examinations and also practical implementations we have to do online for the requirement what they have given. So to do that, this course will be 100% helpful for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Next, Pawan, you raised your hand. Any questions for me?
I'm not working right now. I'm going for interviews with experience. So
Okay.
can I go for DevOps engineer after completion of this course? And one more question.
Let us go one by one. Let us go one by one. The first question: can I go as a DevOps engineer with this Docker and Kubernetes? No, you cannot go as a DevOps engineer without knowing the continuous integration, continuous deployment to tool, at least, which you should have to know. Not only this, you have to know the entire CI/CD pipeline flow. Docker and Kubernetes is definitely will give you the weightage and definitely will gives you the weightage. Definitely your interviews will be scheduled, but in order to crack the job, definitely you need to know other things also. And without other things, if you are a very good at the Docker and Kubernetes, you also will get the job. But you know, your day-to-day life, definitely being a DevOps engineer, to be tagged, we also have to learn the other things. So if you know all other things, if you learn this Docker and Kubernetes here, yes, you can happily put whatever the experience, how much you want to, you can easily. Got it right?
Yes, it means I can apply for jobs and I will get this after completion of this course.
100%. 100% you can apply the knowledge what you can get here, because we're gonna do a 6 different applications, Dockerization, and then the deployment. So that is definitely will give you a greater or you know, in-depth knowledge on the Docker and Kubernetes. So with that, you can easily attend for any interviews.
Just one question. Will you help for resume preparation and interview preparation?
Resume, so resume preparation, I am already providing it for the DevOps course folks who joined for the DevOps. But I can help you with giving a sample resume on the Docker and Kubernetes, because you have to know how to put the roles and responsibilities, isn't it? So that roles and responsibilities and how you can explain it in one project, I can give you that document so that you can prepare the same and then attend for the interviews. Fine, right? So what about Ansible role here and what we'll do? So this is not required for you. You are attending for Docker and Kubernetes, right? This don't bother about this Ansible in this architecture. Okay, so your job is to connect your job is to write the Docker Docker files, building the Docker images, writing the Docker images, meaning writing the Docker files, building the Docker images, and pushing the Docker images to the registry, and also deploying the Docker images in the Kubernetes cluster. That's it. This is your job. What is Ansible? What is Jenkins? What is Sonar? No, you don't need to worry about it. Provided you will already get the WAR file or jar file from this into this repository. You have to take it. You have to build the Docker image using Docker file. You have to read the Docker file, build the Docker image using this artifact, make it as a container, test it, push it to registry, and then again deploy it on the Kubernetes architecture. So this is your part. Later, these two parts will be connected together, merged together, and we will use this in Ansible as a ISE, infrastructure as code tool. This is not for you. This is for the DevOps folks. Okay, so can you please share the Kubernetes syllabus? Yes, now we're going to discuss about the Kubernetes syllabus. So just let me share the Kubernetes syllabus. So let me go here and go to the course content and go here and then see the Kubernetes syllabus. Okay, so I'm just opening it. Perfect. So this is what our Kubernetes syllabus. First, we will understand what is Kubernetes and why Kubernetes, meaning the benefits with the Kubernetes, what is zero downtime, what is self-healing, what is auto scaling, what are rolling updates meaning, and rolling update strategies, and how we can take the rollbacks, versioning, updates, degradations, upgradations, how this can be achieved for the containers using Kubernetes is what we will discuss here. So that with this one, you will get an idea why Kubernetes is, why I'm learning Kubernetes is, you will get an idea. Then next what we will do is, we will know about what is cluster, because as I told, using Kubernetes, we will create a high available cluster, meaning 2 masters, maybe 4 workers, or 1 master, 3 workers, 2 masters, 6 workers. Like that, there is a topology, that is the cluster we will define. So we need to know what is cluster. What is cluster is what we need to know, right? So what is cluster, and what are the cluster elements, meaning why we call it as a cluster. All those things you will get from here. Now you know what is cluster, and you know why you use the Kubernetes. Then you need to understand what is node. Why? Because using Kubernetes, in Kubernetes, we will call each and every machine as a node. So what I mean to say is, for example, if you can see here my screen, there is a Kubernetes master node, there is a worker 1, there is a worker 2. So these are different machines. Master is on one machine, worker 1 is on another machine, worker 2 is on another machine. So these 3 machines are now called as a nodes, and these 3 nodes will be grouped together is called as a cluster. So what is node, what is cluster is what we will discuss. Now you understand what is node, do you understand what is cluster? Then we will go and then see the Kubernetes architecture. So in Kubernetes architecture, what are the components on the master node? For example, if we can go and then see the Kubernetes nodes, just let me open the Kubernetes nodes, create resources, not this one, Kubernetes nodes. This is the Docker nodes. Just in a moment, let me open the Kubernetes nodes. I think it is not here. Just let me go and then open the Kubernetes nodes. Kubernetes, yes, this is the Kubernetes node. For example, in the Kubernetes introduction, if you can see, we will do the what is Kubernetes and what are the Kubernetes concepts and all, and Kubernetes architecture we will see. Just let me open this document just to showcase you the Kubernetes architecture. So this is the Kubernetes official architecture, and this is the simplified architecture, like how we can set up the Kubernetes cluster. So what is master node? What are the worker nodes, right? So what is API server? What is the registry? What is scheduler? What is controller? What is worker node? And what to be set on the worker node, right? And all these things we will discuss. So that is what you will get here, master node components. So you need to understand thoroughly each and every component meaning on their master node. So 100% one interview question you will get here. 100% one interview question you will get here. Okay, next what we'll see is, we'll see the worker node components. So if you can see this architecture, there is a different representation given here. So on worker node given the kubelet and then kubeproxy. On master node given the controller, API server, scheduler. What these will do? What is this key value store? And on the worker nodes, what the kubelet will do, what the kubeproxy will do, what is pod. So these are all the things we will understand. So what is kubelet meaning? What is kubeproxy? So this is very important because, if you understand these two components very clearly, then it is very easy for you to understand about the load balancers and all. So this is what you will get from the Kubernetes architecture. So see this, the diagram is also master node and then 3 worker nodes. High availability. This is called high availability. What is high availability and all, I will explain. Next, Kubernetes installation. So we can install the single node deployment installation using Minikube, and also we can install the multi-node or high available deployment using the kubeadm. So yeah, so the methods of the Kubernetes installation, the various ways of installation, the Kubernetes installation, we will see here. So using a single node, meaning the master and workers will be on a single machine. That is called the Minikube. And multi-node, like as I have shown, master on one machine, worker on another machine, worker 2 on another machine. This is multi-node. So how we can set up that multi-node? Nothing but high availability using kubeadmin. So this is very important actually. If you do this with your own hands, you can easily understand, Azure Kubernetes service, AWS Kubernetes service, Google Kubernetes service, meaning hosted solutions, I mean to say. So those you can easily understand. Okay, right. Now let us scroll down, and then once after see this Kubernetes installation, then we will see the namespaces, the concept of namespaces in the Kubernetes. Very, very important. The concept of namespaces is very, very important. For example, if you can see the exercises that we will do here, just go here and not here. Let me open these applications. Yeah, if you can see this, there is a namespace. So what is the namespace? So namespace, we will create the namespace. That means what? Namespace is nothing but a simple logical partition. So we will create the namespaces, and in that namespace only we will deploy the particular applications. For example, we created here namespace called dev-database, and all the database related things we will deploy in the same namespace. And also here we will create a namespace for our backend applications. See this, and in that namespace only we will deploy the applications, meaning our backend applications or any other applications. So in the namespace called database, we will deploy the database. In the namespace called applications, we will deploy the applications, right? So different namespaces we will use for the different applications deployment. So it is a logical partitioning of the. Let me complete this. I'll explain what is scope and all, but let me complete. Okay, I'm in the middle of the course content discussion, right? After that, definitely I can answer your questions. Fine, right? So namespace is what you will understand. And in the Kubernetes, entire Kubernetes course or entire Kubernetes work when you are doing, so there is an important objects called workload objects. So what are these workload objects and how they will work? If you are learning the Kubernetes or if you are working on the Kubernetes, right, 100% you have to know about these workload objects. Without these workload objects understanding and then the knowledge, there will be nothing meaning in your Kubernetes learning, right? So this is very, very important for the main core concepts of the Kubernetes is this the workloads, right? Next, after learning these workloads, in the workloads, see, you will learn about the parts. deployments, daemon sets, stateful set, replica set. So this is a very, very important interview question. Daemon sets, replica sets, stateful sets, difference between the daemon sets and then stateful sets. Interviewer will ask you, I have a database. That database, how you will run? You will run it as a daemon set or run it as a stateful set. What the benefit you will get? For example, here we have taken the database. Just let me go back to the database, right? So how I have taken this database as a stateful set or as a daemon set, or how I was taken. So here I'm showing it as a deployment. But if you can go to the official, meaning if you go to my repository, let me showcase you my repository just in case. Let me go to my repository. I would like to showcase you something here. Just go to this deployment, app deployment. So if you can see here, app deployment, dev database. If you can see here, what I have used, daemon set. See this? We have used daemon set. That means what? When to use this daemon set, when to use the stateful set, and what are these replica sets. So we have to understand. So basically difference between the deployments, daemon sets, and then stateful sets and replica sets. Replica sets are kind of a replica, but understanding the difference between these three is very important, and interviewer will definitely ask you about these three concepts, differences between the deployments, daemon sets, and then stateful sets. So these are called workload objects, meaning using the either daemon set, either stateful set, this deployment will create the parts of specified number of replica sets. I repeat one more time. Either you are using daemon set, either you are using stateful set, either you are using the deployments. So these will create the number of parts mentioned in the replica set, that these parts will be created by this deployment. This deployment will create the parts, right, based on the replica sets we mentioned. These parts can be of the daemon sets or maybe the stateful sets. Fine. Then after understanding these, what is part, very, very important. Our core concept of the Kubernetes is parts only. What is pod is very, very important. Inside this pod, a Docker container will work. Docker container will run. So what is this pod? Understanding about this pod is very, very important. Not only understanding the pod, understanding these workload objects is very, very important. And however, our day-to-day job, we will start and then we will work with this workload objects only. Right. Now scroll down. Next is what? Configurations. So there is a concept called secrets. There is a concept called config maps, resource quotas, limit ranges, hype, HPA, right? So this is autoscaler, horizontal pod autoscaler. What is this horizontal pod autoscaler and all? We will see, but where we will use it. For example, if you can see here, we have used config map, config secret. So let me open this config map. Now you can see this. Rather, see this database name, port number, MySQL, port number, database type, and all we were mentioned in one place. This is like what, config map is like a vault. In this vault, you can keep all the values, whatever you want to refer later on time in your deployment or wherever you want to refer, you can refer them. See this here, I was referred them. So how I was referred, see this key is this one. Name is this config secret, and name is this config map, and the key is the database. So for this key, there is a value. See this database name, this one. Same key we used here. Right, that means what? Whatever the configurations we want to keep, like database driver name, database name, port number, all these things we can keep here. And there is a concept called secrets, right? So what is the meaning of the secrets here? For example, usernames, passwords, we don't want to be keep exposed right inside our deployment file. We don't want to expose them. Then what we can do is we can keep them inside the secret with the, with the encryption format. So the data is opaque data. Opaque is the format of the data. So how we will, encrypt our passwords, and these encrypted passwords, if you can see, we will use here. So see this MySQL root password value. Go here, MySQL root password value. Right, we are encrypting that password value that will be understood by our deployment. Right, so you raised your hand, I'll come to you. Let me complete this course content discussion. So resource quotas and limit ranges, these were what, how much, for example, this horizontal pod autoscaler is there. So let us assume memory CPU utilization of a particular container reaches 50%. Then immediately create one more pod, Kubernetes pod. So that conditional auto scaling of the pods will be explained by this HPA concept. And resource quotas limit ranges are the concepts of this HPA. Based on this resource quotas and limit ranges, it will decides whether to create one more instance of the pod or not. Pod meaning a simple application you consider for at this moment. Pod meaning consider a simple application at this moment. So application scaling will be decided based on these two parameters, and then automatically it will do a auto scaling. So this is what we will see in our day-to-day classes as well. So that is the reason I'm correlating with the files what we have created and then the applications what we already have done for the earlier batches, right? Just to gives you the confidence. Now networking. In networking, we will work on the services. Okay, so far what we understand, this deployment, using deployment, we will create the Docker containers inside the pods. That's okay. But how we can access the application running inside the pod? So the application running inside the pod can be exposed to the outer world using the services. So services have the endpoints, ingress, network policies, port forwarding. These are all the concepts inside the services. So ingress is the load balancer we will use, and network policies we will configure, port forwarding we will do. A lot of things we will discuss here in the networking concept. Okay, then next thing is persistent storage. So how do we do the persistent storage? So persistent volumes, there is a concept called persistent volumes. If you can see here, we might have also taken the volumes for this database. See this PV, persistent volume, PVC, persistent volume claims. So there's a beautiful concept in the Kubernetes. The volume meaning the data will be exposed to a external drive or external location. So see this. This is the storage location I have given. In that storage location, the data is exposing to this path. This is the path. From this path, it is exposing to this storage location, right? And how it is exposing is all we will write here, meaning using a single, this is what my storage details. So I'm claiming the storage. Of course, this is a little complex topic. I will discuss when the time comes. Okay. So, but you can see persistent volume claims and then persistent volumes is what storage classes is what we understand. If you can see this, there is a concept called storage class name. So what are the different types of storage classes we have? And can we upload the data to a network storage class? Or, I have the elastic block storage. Can we upload the data to that elastic block storage? Can we use it as a value? So all those things we will discuss here. Fine. Then we will discuss the Kubernetes security, that is the access control. So what is the role based? There is a cluster roles. There is a role, cluster role, and then normal pod role, cluster level role, and then a pod level role. So what is service account? What is the role, cluster role, and then pod level role? Difference between these two role bindings, and then how we can securing the application running inside this pod is what we will discuss in this access control section. Then I will explain you a introduction to the Helm charts, not in depth about the Helm charts, introduction about the Helm charts and how the Helm charts will work. I will explain you with one example, but not in depth, not in detail, because Helm chart is a separate course. It again will take 15-20 days of time to know in depth of the Helm charts. So I will give you a glance about the Helm charts, benefits of the Helm charts, how the Helm charts will help us, and how we can deploy the containers or the Kubernetes parts with the Helm charts is what I will explain with one example. Okay, so with this, we will complete our Kubernetes course content. Now it is question hours time. Do you have any questions? Pawan, you raised your hand. Any questions for me now? Okay, fine.
Sorry, sir, I forgot to know.
Fine, no problem, no problem. Any questions for me? Let me read the questions that I got in this chart. So COPS I won't cover here actually. Okay, so there were various ways of setting it up, right? So the cluster creation is using various ways we can do. Like I was taken the KubeADM for the cluster creation, and we can also do it using the COPS. So, but KubeADM will be most popular practiced methods. So that is the reason I was taken this. And of course, we can also do this using COPS as well, right? So creating the cluster using it, we can do. But COPS I won't cover. I will cover only the KubeADM, right? Yeah. Thanks, Bhaskar. Yes. Yes. Material soft copy will be downloadable. Yes. Once you joined here, I will provision you to the Google Classroom. Of course, in every demo, I'm telling you the same. So in this Google Classroom, the documents were given. So you will be also provisioned to here. You can go and then download all the documents like Kubernetes documents and then the Docker documents, all the documents you can go and then download. Yes, documents were downloadable. Fine. Any more questions for me? When will be the course? When will be the course timings? Yes, today is the demo 1. Tomorrow is a demo 2. Tomorrow we will explain about the Docker real-time problem without Docker, how the problem is, how the Docker will solve it. And if possible, we will see how to install the Docker on Windows machine. So tomorrow is a demo 2. And from Monday onwards, we will continue with the new link, with the continuation of this Docker installation. So tomorrow, let us understand the problem without Docker and solution with the Docker, and what is Docker, how we can install it. That is what tomorrow's target. And there is no class on Saturday. And we again will be back on Monday with the continuation session to this Docker installation. And we'll go and then install the Docker on the Ubuntu machine, right? Yeah, that is the plan. Perfect. Yes, class timings are 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. where 1 hour definitely solid discussion will be on the class content and 15 minutes will be on the revision and 15 minutes on the questions front. But 1 hour definitely will be allocated. Definitely 1 hour will be solid discussion on the course content, course theory coverage. Yes, right. So I was answered all your questions, it seems to be. Yes. If you complete this course, can handle not only 3 years, Bhaskar, you can put 8 years, 9 years, 6 years. If your experience will support you, you can put it. Why I'm so much confident, even in my experience, right, in my day-to-day life, and then in my experience, the guys who have 10 plus years also, they don't know, most of the people don't know Kubernetes, though they have the 10 plus years of experience. That doesn't mean they are incapable. No, that doesn't mean that. But the technical gap that have. So what I mean to say is, not only 3 plus years, you can put, if you, that standard of the course that I can teach is always minimum 5 plus, maximum 5 plus years experience you can put. That is the standard I can teach. In any course content, whatever I'm teaching, I will say this word only. You can put 5 plus or 6 plus years of experience also, if your experience will support, if your documents will support it. That is what I will tell, because the quality of the course that I will deliver is definitely up to the 5 plus years of experience to professional guy. It's not kind of an overconfidence, but definitely we should also have the confidence, right? It is the proven, meaning from my earlier batches and then earlier students, it was proven. So that's what I can say. 3+ years you can happily, very easily. Yeah. Yes. Any flexible course timings? Yeah, flexible course timings meaning 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. is the course timing. You can join if you are not able to join. However, you can go through the recording videos as well. And for example, now 8 p.m. to 9:30, you are joined, you paid the fee, but somehow after 15-20 days, it is not possible for you to attend 8 p.m. And in the morning, I started one session. You can go and then join there without paying anything. That flexibility, course migration, meaning the timings migration flexibility is there. Assume you want to attend for the weekend session. You don't have the time to attend in the weekdays. Yes, come and join in our weekend Docker and Kubernetes sessions. If I start it for usually for 3 to 4 weekends, you can join there, no problem. I'll provide such a flexibility. Okay. Have any plan to take CICD session anymore? CICD sessions, no. Already pipeline was there. This course is whole and sole target for the Docker and then Kubernetes. And of course, the integrations I can showcase, like CI/CD integrations I can showcase. That, however, we have to do. Right. Yes. These demo sessions will be uploaded, Bhaskar, to the YouTube, I believe. Thank you so much for sharing it with your friends. Thank you so much. A very much informative demo. Thanks, Mr. Thank you so much. Right. So I think that's all for today. And tomorrow, let us start the problem statement without the container technology. So the official Docker website is telling one definition. So what is this definition meaning? And what if there is no Docker is what we will understand tomorrow. Okay. So thank you so much for your valuable time and then the opportunity given to me. Hopefully see you tomorrow also to continue with the understanding the problem statement without the container technology. Thank you so much. Thank you.